He touched her once, and his skin caught fire. Now she's standing in the dark, trembling, knowing one more second near him could kill them both. But when the monster you fear is the only one who can save you, how long before fear turns into love? She had rehearsed this moment for weeks. She had waited for the day when courage would outweigh fear. Tonight, she wasn't running away. She was taking back her life. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. 11:47 p.m. She had 15 minutes before Bob came home from the bar. 15 minutes to disappear, to vanish before he stumbled through the door with the smell of whiskey and blame. Amanda grabbed the envelope she'd hidden under the lamp. Inside were her resignation papers and a note addressed to her boss. I quit. Just 2 words. Simple. Final. She didn't care about the job anymore. Not after what had happened that afternoon. Not after the way her boss had cornered her in the office, his eyes dark with something far worse than arrogance. Her hand shook as she zipped the suitcase. This is it, she whispered. You're free, Amanda. You're free. But freedom, as she would soon learn, always demands a price. The front door slammed open downstairs. Her heart stopped. She froze. Amanda? Bob's voice was thick, slurred, the kind of slur that came with danger. Where are you? She grabbed her suitcase, but it slipped from her trembling hands and thudded against the wooden floor. Bob's footsteps grew louder. What the hell is this? He appeared at the doorway, his face flushed and furious, rain dripping from his hair. He was holding the resignation letter. You quit your job? His voice cracked with disbelief, then twisted into a sneer. Did I say you could quit? Amanda swallowed hard. Bob, please. I had to. My boss. Your boss? Don't even start with your stupid excuses. He stepped closer, and she instinctively backed up until her knees hit the bed. You think you can just walk away from everything? From me? Her voice trembled. I just want to go home. He laughed bitterly. You are home. Then, quieter, darker. But maybe I need to remind you who you belong to. The air between them thickened. His hand twitched. For a split second, she saw it, the violence behind his eyes. Bob, please, she whispered. He took a step forward. And then, the lights flickered. Bob froze mid-step. Amanda's breath caught. The temperature dropped so sharply she could see her own breath fog in front of her face. What the? Bob muttered, glancing around. The shadows in the corners of the room began to stretch, pulling longer, darker. A soft hum filled the air, like a low frequency only the heart could hear. The lamp flickered once more, then went out. Total darkness. Amanda's pulse raced. Bob, she whispered, and then, from the hallway, came the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady, unhurried. A voice followed, smooth, calm, almost melodic. He was hurting you. Amanda's eyes darted toward the door, searching for the source. Bob spun toward the sound. Who's there? You think you could just walk into my house? No answer. Lightning flashed outside, for just an instant, revealing a tall, pale figure standing in the doorway. His eyes gleamed like molten silver in the brief burst of light. When the thunder followed, he was suddenly inside the room. Amanda gasped. Bob lunged toward him. Get out of my house. But the stranger didn't move. He didn't even raise a hand. He simply looked at Bob, a single sharp glance. Bob's body stiffened. His lips parted, a confused sound escaping his throat. Then, without warning, he collapsed. His body hit the floor with a dull, heavy thud. Amanda screamed. The stranger stepped closer, but not too close. His voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't mean to scare you, but he was hurting you. Amanda's back hit the wall. W, what did you do to him? He tilted his head slightly, studying her. I stopped him. Stopped him? He's not dead, is he? The stranger's expression softened. No, merely asleep. She wanted to believe him, but fear clawed at her chest. The air around him seemed to shimmer, like the world itself was unsure he belonged in it. The silence stretched. Only the rain filled the room, tapping against the window like nervous fingers. Who are you? Amanda managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The stranger didn't answer. Instead, he glanced at the bruise on her wrist, the one she'd tried to hide. His silver eyes flickered with something that looked like anger or pain. Does it hurt? he asked softly. She nodded, trembling. Good, he said, more to himself than to her. That means you can still feel. Amanda's throat tightened. What does that mean? He looked at her then, really looked. And for a moment, she saw it. The centuries of loneliness behind his eyes. The kind of sorrow that didn't belong to any human being. It means, he said quietly, you still have a chance to be free. And before she could speak, before she could even blink, he was gone, vanished into the darkness like a whisper carried off by the wind. Amanda stumbled to her knees, reaching for Bob's still form. He was breathing, shallow but steady. Her eyes darted to the open window. The rain was still falling, but outside, the air shimmered faintly, like the echo of something powerful had passed through. She pressed a trembling hand against her chest. Her heart was racing, not from fear but from something else. Something she couldn't name. Who was that man? How did he stop Bob without touching him? And why did his voice sound like both danger and salvation wrapped in one? As the lights flickered back to life, Amanda realized one thing. Her escape had only just begun. What would you do if a stranger saved you with powers you can't explain? Can a monster protect you better than the man who claims to love you? Would you trust someone who can kill without a touch, or run before you fall in love with them? Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends, to my YouTube channel. I have missed you all. Click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story, just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. Amanda woke to the sound of silence. Not the ordinary kind, but the deep, echoing silence that hums between walls too wide, too still, too perfect. Her body sank into soft sheets, her skin wrapped in warmth she didn't remember earning. The air smelled faintly of cedarwood and smoke, with something ancient hiding beneath it, like the scent of rain on cold stone. She blinked against the golden light spilling through long velvet curtains. Where was she? Her hand brushed the silk pillow, then froze. She wasn't in her room. This place was too elegant, too vast. The bed could fit 3 of her old apartment's rooms inside it. Amanda sat up slowly, clutching the blanket to her chest. The last thing she remembered was Bob shouting, "The light's dying." That voice, low, calm, and inhuman. Her eyes darted around the room. Tall ceilings, chandeliers, old portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. Everything glimmered with quiet wealth, yet nothing felt alive. "Hello." Her voice cracked, the sound swallowed instantly by the emptiness. "Is someone there?" The door opened with a faint hiss. He stepped in, the man from last night. He was tall, impossibly tall, dressed in black that looked older than time, his pale skin catching the morning light like porcelain. His eyes weren't just silver, they were liquid metal, alive and cold. Amanda's heart stuttered. "You?" He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're awake." "Where am I?" she demanded. "What did you do to me?" "You fainted," he said simply. "I brought you here." "Here?" Her gaze swept the grand room again. "What is this place?" He tilted his head slightly. "My home. Has been for a very long time." Amanda hesitated. The man's voice carried something both soothing and terrifying, a calmness that didn't belong in the human world. "You shouldn't have brought me here," she said. "My husband is alive," he interrupted gently, "and will stay that way. For now." The last 2 words sent a chill through her. She pulled the blanket tighter. "You need to let me go." He looked almost amused. "If I let you go now, others will find you, and they won't show the same mercy I did." "Mercy?" she whispered. "You attacked him. He just fell." The man's expression softened, but there was something ancient in his gaze, the weight of centuries. "You think I attacked him?" I barely breathed on him." Amanda stood, her bare feet touching the cold marble floor. "Who are you?" He paused for a moment, as if the question carried a burden. "My name is Simon." "And what are you, Simon?" The smile returned, smaller this time. "Something you shouldn't believe in." She stared at him, trembling. "Try me." He walked toward the tall window. The morning light slanted through it, casting silver across his face. "You've heard the stories," he said softly. "Monsters who walk by night. Shadows that hunger for blood. I am what remains when those stories stop being myths. Amanda's breath caught. You're saying you're a vampire, he finished quietly. Yes. For a moment, the world stopped. She wanted to laugh, to tell him it was impossible. But her memories of last night clawed at her. The lights dying, the freezing air, the way Bob collapsed without a touch. Amanda shook her head. That's not possible. He turned, his silver eyes meeting hers. You saw what happened. You felt the air change. You know it is. She backed away until she hit the edge of the bed. Why me? Why save me? Simon's expression flickered, the calm cracking for just a heartbeat. Because, he said, your scent woke something in me. Something I had forgotten. Her voice was barely a whisper. What? My humanity. He said it like a confession. Like it hurt to say. Amanda didn't know what to do with that. A vampire, a creature of death, speaking about humanity. It made no sense. You're insane, she said, her voice trembling. Simon took a step forward. Perhaps. Another step. Her pulse quickened. He reached out, slowly, as if testing the air between them. Amanda froze, watching his pale fingers hover inches from her face. For a second, she thought he would touch her. Then, a sharp hiss sliced through the silence. Simon jerked his hand back, his face twisting in pain. Smoke rose from his skin where it had come close to hers, thin trails curling upward like burnt silver. Amanda gasped. What's happening? His breath came in shallow bursts. The curse, he said through clenched teeth. I told you, I cannot touch the living. She stared at his hand. The burns were already healing, the skin knitting itself back together with unnatural speed. Why? She asked. Simon turned away, his voice low and hollow. Because once, long ago, I touched someone I shouldn't have. Love turned to fire. The punishment was eternal. Amanda's heart softened despite herself. There was sorrow in his tone, deep, aching sorrow, the kind only time could forge. So, you saved me knowing you can't even touch you, he finished for her, turning back. His eyes glimmered. Yes, I don't need to touch you to feel you, Amanda. Her name on his tongue felt like a secret. She took a step back, unsure if it was fear or something else pulling her away. You need to let me go. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. The world outside is full of monsters, worse than me. You'll be hunted by those who think you now belong to me. Belong? Her voice cracked. I don't belong to anyone. A faint smile curved his lips. Good, he said softly. Then perhaps there's still something human left in both of us. Silence. The tension between them was unbearable, an invisible current, electric and forbidden. Amanda wanted to hate him. She wanted to scream. But her body betrayed her, trembling not just with fear, but with the strange pull of the unknown. He had power over her, yes, but not the cruel kind. His presence felt like danger wrapped in safety. The irony was cruel. The closer she came to him, the more it hurt. And yet, she couldn't look away. Simon stepped back into the shadows, his expression unreadable. Rest, he murmured. You're safe here for now. Amanda watched him disappear into the hallway, his form dissolving into darkness. For the first time, she noticed the faint smell of ozone lingering in the air, sharp, metallic, otherworldly. She lay back on the bed, her mind spinning. He said he was cursed. He said he saved her. He said she awakened his humanity. But if that were true, why did her heart race every time she thought of his voice? And more terrifying still, why did she already want to see him again? Would you trust the monster who saved your life but can never touch you? The mansion was quieter than any place Amanda had ever known. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that pressed against the walls and whispered in the corners, as if the air itself remembered secrets. Amanda wandered through the marble halls like a ghost in her own story. The echoes of her footsteps chased her, too loud in the stillness. She had counted 5 locked doors so far, each one carved with symbols that looked ancient and cruelly beautiful. Every window was barred, not with metal, but with invisible force. When she tried to open one earlier, it resisted, humming softly, as though the house itself had decided she couldn't leave. And now, as the sun sank beneath the horizon, her thoughts turned darker. She was free of Bob. Yes, but not free at all. Her new captor was kind, calm, even gentle, but there was something in his stillness that terrified her more than rage ever could. She was about to test another door when Simon's voice drifted behind her, smooth and measured. Looking for a way out, Amanda spun around, startled. He was standing by the staircase, one hand resting on the polished banister, his expression unreadable. "I just needed some air," she said defensively. "There's air enough inside," he replied, stepping closer. "Outside isn't safe for you." Amanda folded her arms. "You keep saying that, but you haven't explained why." He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "Your husband," he said slowly, "owed money to people who deal in more than numbers. He wasn't just abusive, Amanda. He was reckless. Dangerous men are looking for him, and they'll use anything he's touched to find him." Her blood ran cold. "You mean me?" "Yes." Amanda took a shaky breath. "So what now? I'm just supposed to stay here, locked away like a prisoner?" Simon's eyes softened. "Not a prisoner. A guest under protection." She laughed bitterly. "Protection feels a lot like captivity." He tilted his head slightly, as though considering her words. "Sometimes, the safest cage is the one you don't see closing." That silenced her. Simon turned toward the grand dining hall. "Come, it's time for dinner." The dining room looked like something out of a forgotten century. Crystal chandeliers, tall candelabras, and a table long enough to host royalty. Yet only 2 plates were set. Amanda sat awkwardly at the far end, watching as Simon poured wine into her glass. Dark, rich, and glinting red under the light. "Eat," he said gently. "You need your strength." She hesitated. "Aren't you eating?" He smiled faintly, setting the wine bottle down. "I don't eat what you eat." Her brow furrowed. "Because you're a vampire?" "Yes." "Then what do you eat?" Simon met her eyes. His gaze was steady, too steady. "You already know." Amanda's pulse quickened. "Blood, among other things," he said softly, almost apologetic. "Don't be afraid. I have control." She wanted to believe him, but the flicker of something primal in his eyes made her heart pound faster. She picked up her fork just to have something to hold. "So, you're telling me I'm stuck here with a monster who refuses to eat?" He gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "I never said I refused to eat. I said my hunger isn't for food." The air between them changed. Heavy, electric. Her throat went dry. Simon's tone softened. "You think I saved you because I wanted to?" Amanda's eyes met his. "Didn't you?" He looked away, his jaw tightening. "I saved you because something in me remembered what it was like to care. It's dangerous to remember that." His words lingered in the air like smoke. Amanda pushed her plate away. "You don't have to protect me, Simon. I've lived with monsters before. I can handle myself." He leaned closer, his voice a low whisper that sent a shiver through her. "No, Amanda. You've lived with men pretending to be monsters. Now you're with one who wishes he could be human." Her breath caught. The confession was raw, almost human itself. For the first time, she didn't see the predator. She saw the man beneath the curse. The loneliness in his eyes was older than time. And suddenly, she felt something she didn't expect to feel for a creature like him. Pity. "Simon," she began softly, but he stood, turning his back. "Eat," he said again. "You'll need your strength if you're to stay alive in my world." Hours later, Amanda lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. Her mind replayed his words. My hunger isn't for food. What did that mean for her? She rose quietly, padding barefoot through the dark corridor until she found him, standing on the balcony, motionless, staring at the moon. The silver light cast his face in porcelain and shadow. "You don't sleep?" she asked. He didn't turn. "I dream with my eyes open." "About what?" He smiled faintly. "About things I've lost." Amanda hesitated. "Why do you keep me here?" "Really?" Simon's voice lowered. "Because I don't trust the world not to destroy you. And because I don't trust myself to let you go." Her heart skipped. There it was, the truth buried beneath centuries of control. She stepped closer, the night air cold against her skin. "You could kill me any time," she whispered. He finally turned to her. His eyes glowed faintly, like liquid silver under moonlight. "Yes." "Then why don't you?" Silence stretched between them. Simon's gaze softened, almost tender. Because I'd rather die than see fear in your eyes again. Amanda's throat tightened. She didn't know whether to run or stay. He was everything she should hate. Powerful, dangerous, cursed. Yet standing before him, she felt safer than she ever had in her entire life. The paradox tore at her. He was her captor and her savior. The beast who could end her life, but hadn't. She whispered, "You're impossible." He stepped back into the shadows. "So are you," he murmured. Amanda turned away, her mind spinning. She didn't understand him. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to. That night, as she drifted to sleep, she realized something terrifying. Simon could have killed her 100 times already, and yet he never did. Instead, he watched her like a starving soul looking at light for the first time. And somewhere deep inside, Amanda wondered, if love was another kind of hunger, was she already feeding it? Would you trust the monster who locks you away just to keep you safe? What's stronger, fear of the dark or the love that hides inside it? Days bled into nights inside Simon's mansion. Yet time felt like smoke, shapeless, untouchable. Amanda could no longer tell how long she'd been there. A week? A month? Maybe forever. Simon kept his promise to protect her, though protection had begun to feel like something else, like gravity. Every hour spent near him drew her further into a world she didn't understand but couldn't resist. He spoke of immortality the way others spoke of pain, not as a gift, but a weight. Eternity, he said one evening, isn't living forever. It's dying slowly without the privilege of rest. They were in the library, surrounded by books that looked as though they'd been written before language itself. Candles flickered in iron holders. The fire crackled softly between them. Amanda sat cross-legged on the carpet, flipping through an old manuscript. "You've read all of these?" Simon smiled faintly. "I've written some of them." Her eyes widened. "You wrote books." "I try to remember what it felt like to be human," he said, his voice almost tender. "Writing helped. For a while." Amanda closed the book slowly. "And did it work?" "No." His gaze lingered on the flames. "Human warmth isn't something you can learn from words." The way he said warmth made her heart ache. She understood that kind of emptiness, not of temperature but of feeling. She'd lived years in a cold marriage, in a house filled with silence that bruised. Simon's curse was different only in form. Both of them were trapped in lives they hadn't chosen. Later that night, Amanda wandered through the halls, sleepless. The mansion was a cathedral of shadow and moonlight. As she passed the grand window in the corridor, she stopped. Simon stood there, motionless, facing the glass. The moonlight spilled over him, painting his pale skin in silver. But in the window, only one reflection stared back, hers. Amanda's breath caught. "You don't have a reflection." He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "No, the curse took that from me too." "Why?" "Because I'm not meant to see what I've become." The sadness in his voice was unbearable, a soft wound disguised as calm. Amanda took a hesitant step closer. "You save me. You protect me. You feel more human than most people I've met." A faint, bitter smile touched his lips. "Feeling human doesn't make one human. You of all people should know that." She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You survived years of cruelty," he said softly. "You still believe in goodness. Yet you can't escape the shadow he left on you. You live, Amanda, but you don't let yourself feel." Her breath trembled. His words were a blade, slicing straight to the truth she'd buried. He stepped closer until they were inches apart. "We're not so different, you and I," he whispered. "You're afraid of love because it once hurt you. I'm forbidden to love because it would destroy me." The air around them tightened, hot and cold all at once. Amanda's pulse raced. Then maybe we're both cursed. For a heartbeat, his eyes darkened, that molten silver storm flickering with longing. He reached out instinctively, then stopped mid-motion, his hand trembling in the air between them. The faint hiss of burning skin echoed as he pulled back. Pain flashed across his face. "You see? Even this is impossible." Amanda's heart cracked. She wanted to reach for him, to touch his hand, to say something, anything, that would ease the centuries of loneliness in his eyes. But she didn't, because she knew what pain felt like when it burned too deep. "Simon." He turned toward the window again, his voice barely a whisper. "You make me wish I could touch again." The words hit her like lightning, quiet but devastating. She swallowed hard, trying to breathe. The moonlight framed him like a tragic painting, a creature of darkness longing for light he could never hold. And she realized then, he was the mirror of her own soul. She had spent years craving freedom, only to find herself imprisoned by love. He had spent centuries craving love, only to be imprisoned by freedom. Two souls, chained by opposite fates. The tension between them pulsed like a heartbeat. The closer she moved, the stronger it grew, love and danger swirling together like smoke and fire. "Why you look at me like that?" she asked quietly. Simon's eyes met hers. "Because you remind me what it feels like to want again." Her chest ached. "And what happens when you want something you can't have?" He stepped back, his face shadowed. "You learn to suffer beautifully." Amanda bit her lip, tears stinging her eyes. "That's not living." He gave a small, sad smile. "Neither is what I am." Silence filled the room again, stretching between them like a fragile thread. She wanted to tell him she understood, that she too was haunted by a life she didn't choose, by scars that never healed. But she didn't. She simply stood there, her reflection glowing faintly in the glass beside his absence. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The first drops of rain slid down the window pane, tracing paths between them, her reflection and his void. Simon turned away first. "You should rest." She nodded, though neither of them moved. He hesitated at the doorway. "Amanda," he said quietly, without looking back, "if I could touch you, just once, I think the world would end." And then he was gone. Amanda stayed by the window, her eyes fixed on the rain. The glass held her reflection alone, but she could still feel him, his presence lingering like a heartbeat in the dark. For the first time, she realized her fear was changing shape. It wasn't just fear of him anymore. It was fear of what she was beginning to feel for him. Because love, she thought, was just another kind of hunger, and both could consume you if you let them. Can love still exist when touch is forbidden? Is the greater curse immortality, or remembering what warmth feels like? Would you risk your heart for someone who could never hold you? The storm came without warning, wild winds howling through the valley, rain slashing against the glass like claws. The mansion groaned under its weight, each thunderclap shaking the chandeliers. Amanda stood at the window, watching the world unravel in silver streaks of lightning. Something inside her mirrored the storm, restless, charged, afraid. For weeks, she had lived suspended between fear and fascination, between Simon's shadowed world and her own trembling heart. But tonight, the past found her again. It began with a sound, faint at first, like the echo of an argument carried by the wind. Then came the crunch of tires on gravel, the slamming of a car door, and the unmistakable fury of a voice she thought she'd escaped forever. "Amanda!" Her heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. But it was Bob. His voice tore through the storm like a curse, calling her name, demanding obedience. The name that used to make her flinch now filled her with something else, anger. Simon appeared behind her, silent as shadow, his silver eyes darkening. "He's here," he said simply. Amanda turned, her hands trembling. "Al, how'd he find me?" Simon's gaze drifted toward the door. Humans have their ways. Debt and desperation make men reckless. "He's come for you, and for something more." She stepped back. "You can't face him. If you're cursed, I can handle one mortal." His voice was calm, but there was tension beneath it, like a violin string drawn too tight. Before she could speak again, the doors downstairs burst open. "Amanda!" Bob's voice roared through the mansion, echoing off the marble walls. "Where are you? You think you can hide behind another man? You're mine." Amanda flinched at the word. Mine. The sound of ownership she'd worn like a collar for years. Simon's face hardened. "Stay here," he murmured. But Amanda shook her head. "No, I'm done hiding." They met him in the grand hall. Bob stood soaked from the rain, his shirt clinging to his body, his eyes bloodshot with rage and liquor, his hands clenched around something heavy, a gun, glinting faintly under the chandelier. When he saw Simon, he sneered. "So, this is the freak? The one you ran away with?" Amanda stepped between them instinctively. "Bob, leave. You don't belong here." He laughed, a sound twisted by pride and pain. "Don't belong? You think this man can protect you? Look at him, pale as death. What are you, Amanda? His charity project?" Simon's voice cut through the air, calm but edged like a blade. "You should leave before I forget Mercy." "Mercy?" Bob spat. "You think I'm scared of you?" He raised the gun, aiming directly at Simon. Amanda gasped. "Bob, don't." The gun went off. The sound cracked through the hall like thunder. But before the bullet could reach him, Simon lifted a hand, and the air shimmered. The bullet slowed mid-flight, spinning in place, then dropped harmlessly to the floor. Bob's face drained of color. "What the hell?" "Enough," Simon said quietly. "You've hurt her enough." He took a step forward, and that's when it happened. A blinding light flared from his hands, followed by the sharp hiss of burning flesh. Simon's face twisted in pain. His skin glowed, veins turning silver as smoke rose from his palms. "Simon!" Amanda cried, rushing toward him. "Stay back!" he shouted, his voice breaking. The curse. But she couldn't stop. Years of fear and silence shattered inside her. She grabbed a vase from the table and hurled it at Bob, the crash echoing through the hall. "Get out!" she screamed. "You don't owe me any more." Bob staggered back, stunned by the fury in her voice. Amanda's eyes burned with something he'd never seen before, strength. Simon fell to his knees, his body trembling, the curse clawing at him like fire. Amanda ran to him, ignoring the pain that fear once commanded. Bob raised the gun again. "You stupid." Before he could finish, Amanda turned on him, her voice sharp as lightning. "You're the coward, Bob. You think control is love? You think fear makes you powerful? Look at you, terrified of losing something that was never yours." Her words struck like blows. Bob faltered. For the first time, she saw it. The smallness in him, the weakness hidden behind his rage. He took a step back, his hand shaking. "You'll regret this," he hissed, retreating toward the door. "Both of you." And then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. The echo of his car faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of thunder and Simon's ragged breathing. Amanda dropped to her knees beside him. "Simon, please, your hands." Smoke still curled from his skin, his veins shimmering with faint light. He looked fragile for the first time, his immortality cracked open before her eyes. "I told you," he whispered weakly, "my curse burns what it loves." Tears blurred her vision. "Don't you dare talk like that." He smiled faintly, even through the pain. "You fought for me." "I fought for us," she said, voice trembling. "Because I can't lose you too." His eyes fluttered open, silver and soft. "Amanda!" She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, sobbing quietly. His body was cold, cold like marble, like winter, but she didn't care. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. "Not anymore." Simon looked at her with something that went beyond centuries, a kind of wonder he'd long forgotten. "You shouldn't love me," he murmured. "I know," she said, lifting her face. "But I do." Their eyes met, the living and the damned, and for a single heartbeat, the world felt still. If love was a curse, she had chosen it willingly. Simon reached up with trembling fingers, stopping just short of her face. The air between them shimmered faintly, the edges of his hand glowing. He couldn't touch her, but his eyes told her everything. "I would burn 1,000 times," he whispered, "if it meant I could stay close to you." She took his hand anyway, pressing it against her heart despite the heat that seared her palm. Pain tore through her, but she didn't let go, because for the first time, pain felt like freedom. The storm outside began to fade, the thunder softening into rain. The mansion fell silent again, but something had changed inside both of them. Amanda had faced the monster of her past, and Simon, the monster who had saved her, had finally found something worth dying for. Would you risk your life to protect someone who can never truly hold you? When love burns, do you pull away or let it scar you forever? Can a monster deserve love if his curse is to destroy what he cares for most? The mansion had changed. After the storm and the night of fire, the silence that followed was no longer peaceful. It was hollow. The air that once hummed with Simon's presence now carried only the faint echo of what used to be. Amanda moved through the great halls like a ghost, her fingertips tracing the cold banisters, the velvet curtains, the spines of ancient books that whispered when she passed. Every corner of the house breathed of him, his calm voice, his silver eyes, the quiet restraint that lived between them. But now he was fading. Simon had grown weaker each day since the curse burned his hands. His strength, once eternal, was slipping through time's fingers like dust. The glow that once shimmered faintly beneath his skin had dimmed to gray. And Amanda, fragile, mortal, desperate, refused to let him disappear. One night, she found herself in the mansion's forbidden wing, where the air tasted older, heavier. Cobwebs lined the shelves of a hidden library, its doors sealed by runes that pulsed faintly when she touched them. The lock broke beneath her hand, as if something wanted her to find what lay inside. Books older than centuries filled the room, thick, leather-bound, written in languages she didn't know. But one of them glowed faintly beneath the candlelight, its cover etched with a single word in silver script, amor vitae, love of life. Amanda turned the pages carefully, her breath quickening as the words began to shift into English before her eyes. The ink seemed alive, whispering to her as she read. The curse of the untouchable one may only be broken by the willing surrender of immortality. If the cursed gives his life for love, his soul will be freed. But to touch what he loves is to burn away his eternity. Her heart pounded. There it was, the answer, the only way to save him. But at what cost? Simon found her hours later, sitting cross-legged on the floor, the book open before her. Candlelight danced across her face, reflecting in her tear-streaked eyes. He leaned against the doorway, pale and weak, but still impossibly graceful. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "That place holds things meant to stay forgotten." Amanda looked up. "I found it, Simon. The way to end your curse." He frowned. "End it?" "Yes," she whispered, standing and clutching the book. "You could be free. You can live." Something flickered in his eyes, a strange, fragile hope mixed with sorrow. "Ow!" She stepped closer, her hands trembling. "If you give up your immortality. The book says if you willingly let go, if you choose love over eternity, the curse will break." He went still. For a long time, neither spoke. The fire crackled quietly in the distance, and the rain tapped gently at the glass. Finally, he said, "And the cost?" Her voice broke. "You'll die." Simon smiled faintly, that sad, beautiful smile that always made her chest ache. "Then it's no freedom at all." Amanda shook her head, tears falling freely now. "You can't talk like that. There must be another way." "There isn't," he said quietly, stepping closer. "The curse was never meant to be lifted. It was meant to teach me what it means to lose everything." She pressed her hand to her heart. "You've already lost enough." Simon looked at her then, truly looked at her, and in that gaze was centuries of longing, centuries of loneliness cracking open into something warm and human. "If I touch you, I die," he whispered. "But if I don't," his voice faltered, "I'll lose you." Amanda's breath trembled. "Then don't touch me. Just stay. Please." He reached up, his hand hovering inches from her face, the faint hiss of the curse already beginning to rise from his skin. "You still don't understand," he said softly. "You're the only thing that's ever made me feel alive. And what is eternity worth if I can't feel?" She shook her head violently. "No, I can't watch you die." Simon's lips curved into the gentlest smile she'd ever seen. "You already watched me live without life. This is mercy." Amanda sobbed, clutching his pendant, the one he always wore, a small silver crest shaped like a crescent moon. "Don't do this." He reached for her one last time. His fingers trembled, smoke already rising where his skin neared hers. The curse screamed against him, trying to pull him back, but he didn't stop. The moment his fingertips touched her cheek, the world exploded into light. It wasn't pain, it was release. The fire burned gold instead of red, wrapping around them in waves of brilliance. The air shimmered, filled with a hum that felt like music, like 1,000 souls sighing in relief. Amanda felt his hand, warm, human, impossibly soft, for a single heartbeat before it turned to light in her palm. "Simon," she cried, reaching for him as his body dissolved, piece by piece, into the glow. His face, calm, almost peaceful, was the last thing to fade. "I told you," his voice echoed faintly. "I'd rather burn than lose you." Then he was gone. The pendant fell into her hand, still warm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat before cooling into silence. The light faded. The fire died down to embers. And the mansion, once wrapped in shadows, began to change. The curtains fluttered as sunlight streamed through the tall windows, touching the walls for the first time in centuries. Dust turned to gold in the air. The darkness that had haunted the house melted away, leaving only warmth behind. Amanda stood there, trembling, bathed in sunlight and heartbreak. She looked down at the pendant, its silver gleam reflecting the morning light. A tear rolled down her cheek and landed on it. And for an instant, she swore she heard his voice whisper, "You freed me." Her knees gave out. She fell to the floor, clutching the pendant to her chest, crying until she could no longer breathe. The sun rose higher, filling every room, every hidden corner. The house that had once belonged to a monster now felt like a cathedral of light, his final gift to her. He had chosen love over eternity, and she, fragile, mortal Amanda, had been the reason an immortal learned what it meant to live. Would you trade eternity for one moment of real love? If every touch burned you, would you still reach for the one you love? Is sacrifice the truest form of love, or the cruelest? The world outside the mansion had changed, but inside Amanda, time had stopped. Weeks had passed since the morning Simon vanished into light. Each day unfolded in quiet fragments. Letters from lawyers, meetings with people who spoke in hushed tones, the endless signatures required to inherit his empire. Simon Harrington, the immortal who'd lived in the shadows for centuries, had left everything to her. His company, his estate, his name. On paper, Amanda was now one of the richest women in the city. In reality, she was hollow, a queen of ashes ruling over a kingdom of ghosts. Everywhere she went, he lingered. In the grand library, where dust motes danced through the sunlight he'd never seen. In the echo of the piano in the hall, where his fingers once hovered but never played. In the pendant that now hung around her neck, his last trace, his final heartbeat. At night, she would stand at the balcony, staring at the stars, wondering if he could see her from wherever he was. Sometimes she swore she felt him. The faint brush of cold air against her skin, the quiet hum in the corners of the house when she whispered his name. But each time she turned around, there was only silence. One evening, Amanda sat alone in Simon's study, surrounded by ledgers and legal documents, all bearing her new signature, Amanda Harrington. She smiled bitterly. Even after death, he had found a way to tie her name to his. A photograph sat on the desk, one of her own taken at some forgotten event, now framed in silver. She didn't remember ever giving it to him. Her fingers brushed the edge of the frame. "You really thought of everything, didn't you?" she whispered. The candlelight flickered, as if the air itself breathed in response. She closed her eyes, clutching the pendant around her neck. It had grown colder lately, so cold it almost burnt. "I miss you," she said softly. "You gave up eternity for me. But what am I supposed to do with forever now?" No answer came, but the quiet felt less empty, like someone was listening. That night, exhaustion finally pulled her into sleep. And in her dreams, he came. Not as the pale, shadowed creature she remembered, but as something brighter, human, warm, radiant. The curse was gone from his eyes. They no longer glowed silver, but shimmered like sunlight on water. He stood in a meadow of light, wind sweeping through his dark hair, smiling at her the way he never could before. "Simon," her voice trembled. "You're free," he finished gently. Tears filled her eyes. I thought I'd never see you again. He took a step toward her, and for the first time, he didn't burn. He reached out, brushing his thumb against her cheek, soft, real, alive. You gave me that, he said, when you loved me enough to let me go. Amanda closed her eyes, leaning into his touch, memorizing the warmth she had once only dreamed of. I don't know how to live without you. Simon smiled sadly. You already are. The world around them shimmered, fading like morning fog. His form began to glow again, edges turning to light. Don't, she begged, gripping his hand. Please, not again. He shook his head, gently prying her fingers apart. This time it's different. I'm not leaving. I'm changing. Her brow furrowed. Changing. He lifted the pendant that hung around her neck, the same one that had fallen from his hand the day he died. It pulsed with faint silver light between them. I left a piece of myself here, he whispered. In this. In you. You carry my soul now, Amanda. Wherever you go, I'll be there. She choked back a sob. Will I ever see you again? His eyes softened. Every time you look at the light. And just like that, the dream began to dissolve. The meadow turning to mist, his form fading into brightness. His voice lingered last, floating through the warmth. You freed me, but I'll never stop watching over you. Amanda woke with a gasp, her heart pounding. The room was bathed in morning sunlight, soft and golden. For a moment, she thought she was still dreaming. Then she felt it, a faint, cool touch brushing her cheek, gentle as a whisper. Her breath hitched. The pendant around her neck began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter, pulsing with rhythm, as if it were alive. A single tear slipped down her face, catching the light. It landed on the pendant, and the glow flared one last time before settling into a soft, steady shimmer. Amanda smiled through her tears. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. The emptiness wasn't emptiness anymore. It was full of him. The mansion was no longer dark. The air was no longer cold. And inside her, something warm began to bloom. Not the fragile fire of grief, but the steady light of love that refused to die. That afternoon, Amanda walked through the garden Simon had kept hidden for centuries. The roses, now miraculously blooming, their petals glowing faintly under the sun. She ran her hand across one, feeling its softness. A wind stirred through the trees, and for a heartbeat, she thought she heard him again, not in pain, not in longing, but in peace. Keep living. She smiled to the sky. I will. The sunlight caught her hair, turning it gold. In that glow, she looked almost ethereal, like a part of him still lingered in her every movement. And perhaps it did, because love like theirs didn't vanish. It didn't die. It transformed into light, into memory, into the quiet pulse of eternity that beats between two souls meant to find each other again and again. As night fell, the mansion stood gleaming under the stars, no longer a place of shadows, but a beacon. Amanda sat by the window, the pendant warm against her chest. The moon reflected in her eyes as she whispered, "Good night, Simon." A soft wind moved through the room, brushing her cheek once more. This time, she didn't flinch. She smiled calm, steady, unafraid, because she finally understood. He hadn't died. He had become everything she touched, everything she saw, everything she was brave enough to love again. Love that defied death now lived between two worlds, one made of light and the other of memory. And in the space where those worlds met, Simon and Amanda would always find each other. Can love truly die, or does it just change form? Would you still believe in love if it lived beyond the grave? Is freedom found in letting go, or in holding on to the memory? If the one you lost still watched over you, what would you do to make them proud? Thank you for watching this story to the end. That if you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now, too. Watch the next one.